Welcome back, everyone, to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully. He's Gordon Mack. Got a busy show for you on this Monday morning, talking Usain Bolt, Eliud Kipchoge, some fast marathon results, and we'll go into the mailbag to get some feedback on Gordon's cross-country idea that is already just taking storm all throughout the country, revolutionizing the way people approach the sport. Not really. It's actually just getting a couple emails. But I'm excited to read them. Gordon, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm on edge. I'm on pins and needles. As you know, I'm a Philadelphia sports fan, and the Philadelphia sports haven't been too kind to me lately. So I put all of my energy into my fantasy football team. And I know people don't like listening about other people's fantasy football team, but I've done fantasy my entire life, since I was of age. And I've had season 6-0. I'm currently 5-0. And I'm going up against another 5-0 team. And if I could start the first 6 weeks 6-0, that would be incredible. It all comes down to Monday Night Football. I have Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. The other guy has some guy named Derrick Henry, running back for Tennessee Titans. So likely I am not going to win, but I'm putting all my positive energy into the Bills wide receiver core over the running backs of Tennessee. So that's what's going on in
Bleak.
my life. Yeah.
Bleak outlook for Gordon Mack, folks. That's what happens when Ben Simmons doesn't tell people he's going to show up and just shows up at the Sixers practice facility after you spent years and years pouring your heart into that team. As I mentioned, we'll talk about some big names here because we got Kipchoge running a 5K at the end of October with a twist against some average Joes out there. And we have Bolt with some interesting quotes. Also, Wayne Kaladi ran a fast 10K that we'll talk about. Let's start first here, Gordon, with some fast marathon results. You know, on the men's side, at least, we were waiting. Hey, when's there going to be a sub 204 this fall? We saw one in Milan in the spring, but Berlin passed. Nobody ran that quick. London passed. Deep field still didn't get over under 204. Chicago, I know they had the bad weather, but that one was 1 in 206. And then finally, we get one here with Tamarat Tola in Amsterdam, 203.39. This is a serious time and a serious win here for Tola. Obviously, he's a name that people are familiar with if they've been following major marathoning over the past couple of years. But a big run for him and a big win, smashes the course record out there in Amsterdam. And on the women's side of things, an even more impressive performance. Now the women have been running fast all fall. We saw that historic London Marathon in terms of depth, but Angela Tanui goes 2:17.57. So we get another 2:18 this fall. That's also a course record, PB by 2 minutes, and moves her to number 10 all time. So marathons are getting rolling here, Gordon. Doesn't even matter if it's a major this fall.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen kind of not the death of majors, but that there are more improvements in non-majors year in and year out. You see what happens. Valencia does a good job of putting on fast times. You see Dubai typically have some good marathons, and now it's just more and more. It's not just about being at Tokyo, New York, Boston, Chicago, London, Berlin. There's these other marathons that are starting to step up to the plate, and some of the top athletes in the world are able to get there and run fast times. And seeing Tola run 2:03 is pretty insane.
Mm-hmm. As well as Tanui, right? So now we have had three for the women, three sub 218s on the women's side of things. And you thought, maybe I shouldn't put words in your mouth. I thought, hey, there's so many majors this fall. Everybody's going to go into a major. Because why wouldn't you? All the options are on the table. And instead, even with all the majors available, people are still running in things without the major status, be it, as you mentioned, Amsterdam or later on, December. Valencia, I think, is going to have the fastest marathon of the year. I think we're going to see something ridiculously quick. They already announced on the and Jeffrey Kemwara are going to be there. So I'm sure the women are going to be stacked with names. Maybe people we don't even know yet who are going to take advantage of that fast course. But what do you think about this moving forward? Do you think this is something that, post pandemic type scheduling is going to go away, or do you think it's going to increase when the marathon schedule gets back to some sort of normal?
What do you mean by post-pandemic type scheduling?
London staying in the spring, Boston, because I know London next year is going to do fall again, so that's going to be weird
Yeah.
because they don't. It's just tough to pull off back to back major marathons from an organizational standpoint. So when we get back to the schedule where we have London in the spring, we have Boston in the spring, we have Tokyo up there in the winter, and then in the fall we have Berlin, Chicago, and New York.
Yeah, I mean, I think we will get back to that. I mean, I'm hoping that we keep on saying it to our friends and family. We'll get back to normal one day, right?
Hmm.
I assume that the running meet directors have that same intent. Well, permanent structural change from the pandemic with road racing. I think eventually we'll just get back to the way it was. But I do think the main change that maybe will come of it is that you don't need, like I said, you don't need to be in a major to run fast. You don't need to be
Hmm.
in a major to do something impressive. Now, I'm guessing the thing that majors have is, a third place at Amsterdam versus a third place at Boston. You're probably getting more
Hmm.
money for getting third at Boston than you are getting for third at Amsterdam, right?
Hmm.
So there is going to be still that monetary factor to kind of draw the top talent to the majors.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
when you have Tanui run 2:17:58, there's Safan Hassan cheering her on as she crosses the finish line. It's, 2:17s don't grow on trees, and Amsterdam's able to draw one. I did read somewhere that she had visa issues, and actually she was going to run in Boston,
Okay.
but had to run Amsterdam due to that. I guess Amsterdam's very lucky that the visas didn't work out because they were able to get a sub 218 runner on their course.
Yeah.
Very impressive. And I did see a tweet somewhere that she dedicated her performance to Agnes Tiprop, who passed
Kirop. Yep.
away. Kirops, apologies, who passed away a few days ago. So, um, yeah, it's a very impressive run. I
Hmm.
mean, did,
Yeah, I think.
what
Well.
do you think that what do you think that I'm stumbling over myself? But every time it's like, all right, if you had to like rank the top marathoners of the world, top three, you would think it'd just be gold, silver, bronze at the Olympics.
Hmm.
But obviously, marathons aren't, there's going to be a bunch of major champions. Where do you think Tanui now will be ranked at the end of the year, subjectively, with this 2:17:58 on a non major course?
She's run enough to where you'd say she's legitimate, right? She's not just a flash in the pan who's going to run one race. Now, the 217 is a big jump up, but this is her third marathon this year. She'd run 220s before. She's been around. So I'll put her in the top 5. I still feel good about Jip Koskai and Jip Cheer, and then I'm still hanging with Bridget Koskai. I know she got beat in London, got beat at the Olympics, but she has a 214 world record. And she also, even though she's getting beat, she's losing to good people. And I think that counts for something in the marathon right now, right? Like the fact that you're jumping, you could easily jump in a race, run a fast time where no one is near you and say, I deserve a high ranking. But, you know, Kaz guy is attracting good competition. She's losing to good competition, but she's still attracting good competition. I think you know, Dubai's always been fast and it's never been a major. So and Frankfurt's, produced some fast times and it's never been a major. But I think what we're seeing here is there's so many planned B's and C's and D's now for marathon runners that if stuff comes up with injury or like you're saying here with a visa issue, it doesn't ruin their season in in a way that maybe it would have in the past because there's just so much depth in the marathon right now that they can have a last minute change and they can still get in a very high quality race. And I think that's a little bit of an advantage for this current era that maybe it wasn't there in the past where there's just like, okay, I'm putting out all my eggs into one basket, something goes wrong, oh, I'm screwed. And they're also willing to race a lot, right? And that's sort of like a throwback to way back in the day, but they're willing to race more too. So they have multiple opportunities set up, and when you have multiple opportunities set up, that just gives you more chances to succeed. So I think you're seeing that as well too.
Yeah, very impressive. You can watch the replay on FloTrack. Also, the Paris Marathon, the replays on FloTrack from the past weekend. So
Mhm.
Lots of marathons on Flow this year, which is pretty fun. So, just race play FloTrack.com.
Speaking of marathons, and speaking of Paris, Eliud Kipchoge is going to run a 5K on the Champs Elysees on October 31st. He's going up against 2,000 competitors, Gordon, but these competitors will not be Kennedy Sibikele and his normal marathon compatriots. No, he's running against a group of average runners who will have a head start. I don't know how big of a head start it is. I think it's staggered based on your entry time and your ability. And the catch here, if you can hold him off, Gordon, if you can beat him, you will gain entry into the Paris 2024 mass race, which just found out about that recently. Paris is like, you know what? Staging an Olympics, not difficult enough. Not enough of a logistical headache. What we're going to do is after the regular marathon in 2024, we're going to host a mass race so people can run the same course that the runners just ran. So if you hold off Kipchoge and you beat him, air quotes, beat him, I'd call it a win because it's Kipchoge, then you gain entry into this Paris 2024 marathon, which I'm guessing is going to be an extremely coveted race.
So, my first question is how do you get we know how you get entry into the Paris mass race. How do you get
Yeah.
entry into this race? Because it says 2,000 runners. How do they select those
Yeah.
2,000 runners?
You got to click. You got to click the link and figure. I saw that was an application process there. I Here's what I think they should do because they're only limiting it to 2,000 and they're going to stagger the starts, right? I think they should do a lot of research on these 2,000 people and actually figure out no, because I want a straightaway situation where it's Kipchoge trying to run down five like literally 2,000 people. So I don't want anybody lying about their time and saying, "Oh, I'm a 20-minute 5K runner," and then you get out there and you run 18:30 and you beat Kipchoge. Not that Kipchoge needs any help, but I want them to dig into these people's Strava profiles. I want them to look at their recent race results. I want them to come up with the best algorithm possible so that way this thing is just a sea of people on the Champs Elysees, and Kipchoge's gotta catch them all in that last stretch.
I can see Travis just going through the application process. It's all in
Yep,
French. So,
that's the first
if you
step.
don't know
You got to speak
French, it's the
French.
first step. Speak French, and then you'll be able to get into the entry. Here's what I'm thinking. Before we talk about what first, all right, first question: how fast do you think Kipchoge will run a 5K in on the road, chasing people?
Well, uh, it depends. Is he going to be? I mean, he seems like a nice guy. He seems like not the type of guy who wants to crush your dreams. His saying is "No human is limited," but he's about to boot these people out of the Paris 2024 mass race. I mean, he could run. Yeah, he could run. You know, 13s, obviously mid 13s if he needed to.
So over under 13. I put the over under a 13:30. Is he running under or over?
So my rule with Kipchoge is always do under. So I'll go under.
Okay, that's a good. That's a good rule. Always bet
Yeah.
the under with Kipchoge.
Yep. That's the rule. What do you think?
I think he goes over. It's like he's gonna
Because
jog. He's gonna want people to qualify. He's gonna be like
yeah,
the
but they're
first
gonna be
person
like,
he sees that
listen,
he's passing. He's gonna want to be like, oh, I don't want to pass you. Yeah, I'll give you
yeah.
few more moments of glory before I pass you, and then you know
So, so do you think he
it's
goes
just gonna
0
feel.
in 2000? Do you think he loses to everybody? He just feels so bad.
uh, Well, that's the thing. Like, it's like Paris being like, hey, we do not want these people to come to our marathon. Better beat them. Or are they like,
Yeah,
hey, like, what's the incentive? Why would Kipchoge want to tear down the dreams of 2,000 people to run in the Olympics? Like,
yeah,
he's kind of like a villain here. They're turning him into a villain. I don't know if I like this
exactly.
idea. He's a
They took
yeah.
the most beloved. They took the most beloved figure in running right now and have said, "You need to drop the hammer on all these people. Like you need to end their hopes." I've seen this thing before where a fast person catches people in a marathon. They start behind them, and then every person they pass is a donation to charity. But those people aren't using as a qualification race. So if you get passed
Yeah.
by a fast person, you're not thinking, "Oh man, well, my dream just ended. Thanks a lot, greatest marathoner of all time." Take your shoes back. I don't want them anymore. I watched all your documentaries, and this is how you repay me?
Yeah, he looks like a
What
villain
if
here.
you
Looks like he's in a Matrix episode. Look, check this out. Yeah, that is a man who's about to steal your dreams of
GQ
Paris
Kipchoge.
2024.
That's GQ Kipchoge. What if he has
Here,
to dress like that in the race? That's the twist, and he's got to catch you. He starts behind you, and he's dressed like that. That's the rule.
here's the other aspect. Say you do, by miracle, beat Kipchoge in a 5K. First question is, will that person brag about beating Ilya Kipchoge without giving the
Yeah.
context that he got a head start?
Oh, 100%. 100% would
They'll
do it.
definitely lie. Okay,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
already have that. On top of that lie, will they also lie and say, I qualified for the Olympics? I'm running in the Olympics. Like, will they pretend that being in the mass start of this Olympic marathon course for the people, are they going to
Yeah.
say, "Hi, I'm an Olympian"? Like, are these people
No.
Olympians now?
Might be a step too far there. We need to get some person to go. Hopefully, we have a listener in France or who has access to transportation and or a lot of money that can read French, so they can do the entry fee to get in this race. I want to know everything about it because I want to know just the vibe out there and the feeling. And if they do qualify, I want to know what that's like as well too. I think you're right. They picked an interesting character. You have to pick Kipchoge because he's the biggest star. But if you pick someone different, say Bekele, right? Bekele, he's out there looking for wins at this point in his career. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have this no human is limited brand associated with him. He'll go for it. I think. I'm going to beat all 2,000 of you.
Travis, why are you highlighting? What does that translate to? 48-hour encore port. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's some French there. We need some translation there.
Well, Travis
Um,
highlighted it for a reason, and I don't know why.
maybe he just wanted to see you try to speak French. There is no reason.
Well, here's a question: the people who do qualify for this mass Olympic marathon, are they gonna get the Olympic ring tattoos? You know, there's gonna be one dude who's like,
Yes,
"I'm in the Olympics. I'm getting the rings. No one can say
has to.
no. I'm running on the Paris course." I feel like
Yeah,
this might be a thing, though. I can see LA doing it. Like, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
people might be like, "Hey, it's a way to get all the mega distance fans." Oh, 48 hours to register. Oh, so we have
All
48
right,
hours to register. So if you listen to
there you go.
this,
Hurry
register right
up,
now.
hurry up
Um,
if you're in France.
I feel like this might be
Or
a thing that might catch on. I could see LA doing it. I could see other marathons being like, hey, let's put a little community event. You know, they have like the big X village type thing for all the
yeah,
fans. Why not have like a sport event for people to participate?
if this came to Austin, if he was doing this in Austin and not the Champs Elysees, which I don't understand why they would pick the Champs Elysees over Austin, but they did. Would you do it? Would you sign up?
Would I sign up? Yeah. And I
Yeah,
would give myself a huge ass handicap because I have a big handicap right now. So
yeah, and you would get caught immediately. It would be terrific. It would
nah,
be cool.
if I
So
got caught, I'll try to turn it into yeah.
I've been lapped by some really fast people in my life, and it's just I wouldn't say it's thrilling because I'm just bummed at that point because I'm getting crushed in this race. But just to feel for like a second how fast they're going, it's remarkable, and it would be fun just to have him run by you. I think
That would be true.
because you
Would you cut
never.
him off? Would you not let it be like try to slow him down? You're like, hey,
No, I'm not gonna do that. Remember that happened to Rupp? What happened to Rupp when in the Olympics? Kipchoge turned, said something, race was over. I don't want to have that bad karma. Not in run. I don't have any running goals in the future, but just my life in general. If Kipchoge says a cross word to me, then I'm just feeling bad about my chances for the next 10 years of my life. So no, I think it would just be cool just to feel him at that pace, even though I wouldn't. It would be like it'd be like standing in a batter's box as someone throws 98 miles an hour next to you. It would be over really quick, but you'd be in awe of it and understand that there's no way that you could ever be at that level. It'd be fun.
what would be fun is if like someone like
Actually,
Bekele
Kipchoge is
or
probably like
Rupp,
103, but
I want to see Bekele or Rupp enter this race
there you go.
and be like, all right, give me a a 0 second handicap and let's go. You know, do you think there's anyone who's gonna go
It
in
would
with
be
try to get a
Bekele.
0 second handicap and be like,
It would be
we're
Bekele.
racing?
That would be great. Well, so in my perfect setup for this, right? They get all the data from everybody and they figure out who should start when. You'd have a wide range of people. You wouldn't just have a whole bunch of 17-minute 5K people getting a couple minute head start. You'd have the whole, like, you'd have a 30-minute person. You'd have the whole experience, the whole running experience represented. Yeah, all the way down to maybe not an elite, like someone we've heard of, but maybe a young up and comer who thinks that this is their big shot, their big break. This could be a good reality show now that I think about it.
Maybe we
With
get Newberry Park's cross country team. There's no
they're in,
team
yeah,
nationals.
yeah.
Let's change your team nationals to the Kipchoge experience. Do you think
You
Newberry
got
Park that would be fun to see like a college
yeah,
cross country team or a high school cross country team
yeah.
all run? That would be cool.
Yeah, it's like Amazing Race. You have all these different teams and they all have these different stories and they represent different aspects of life and Kipchoge just tries to beat all of them. So, again,
Or
he's not perfect for that role as like a evil reality show villain type, but for something more good-natured like The Amazing Race, he'd be perfect.
and I'm not sure how many people have seen Squid Game. I'm trying to get you to watch Squid Game. Maybe this race could be game number 7 of Squid Game. Like this could be the
Mhm.
new game for the next season where you have Kipchoge kind of chase down, and if he passes you, you get killed. That could be
Yeah,
how
it'd be
it
a little
works.
dark. They already have bib numbers though, so they got the whole number
Yeah,
sequence down
they got
like
the
they do
number
in Squid Game.
system. It's equality, right? Because it'll be even based on your ability, so it won't be an unfair advantage. That's what I want to see. I want to see a definitely like a. I'm trying to get you to watch Squid Game so we could do a Squid Game track crossover episode. You need to watch it. And part of
It's a little
the
dark.
one of the
It's a little
conversations would
dark.
be what track and field events would be great Squid Game competitions, and we would
Interesting.
create track based Squid Game comps. But you got to watch it
Interesting.
first before
Very
whatever.
dark. Very dark end of the segment there for Gordon. Let's move on to let's talk. Actually, let's stay on the roads. Let's do Bolt. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. I'm going to stay in order of this rundown here. Usain Bolt talked, and when he talks, he gives quotes, and we talk about the quotes here. First off, let's talk about this first one, the one that got the headline, and this is to Reuters. Uh, this is about Andre Degrasse. Quote: Andre Degrasse is more consistent anytime he's in shape. He is always on the podium. He says, so if that continues on this line, he would be the guy to watch, or he will be the guy to beat. Everyone else has been up and down, win one meet, lose the next, and it is all about consistency. Gordon, what do you think of Bolt's read of the current global sprint scene?
I mean, he's right in that situation. However, the difference is DeGrasse being consistent on like medaling doesn't really translate to an all-time greatness, you know? Just because you're able to always be there, always get a third, a second, or a first here and there. I mean, he was runner-up in both Diamond League finals. That doesn't always translate to like all-time performance, and maybe he's just always can continue to be the podium guy and not the star. So it is good. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing, meaning you're not going to fall off the face of the earth, and you're always going to be in the mix to win it. The curse
Yeah,
could be there's always going to be one person who has that better day than you.
I think this is good analysis by Bolt. I don't always agree with his analysis. I think he's right here. I said DeGrasse had the best sprint season, but it was really close because of what it says here. Up breakthrough though, he got his
Hey, Kevin,
yeah.
you're breaking up a bit there, so you may need to refresh your browser, and then you can re-say what you just said, so the people who are listening to the audio don't have to think that their audio is being chopped up back and forth. But anyway, as you were saying, why don't we say what you were about to say?
What I was gonna say, I don't always agree with Bolt's analysis, but I think he's dead on here. I think he's dead on here. Um, we talked about DeGrasse, Curly, others, Bednarik, being in that mix for the sprinter of the year, the belt, and I ultimately ended up on Degrasse, right? I thought Degrasse narrowly got it. He narrowly had it. He did break through this year. He did get his global gold, so he is in that sense a different runner than he was a year ago, 2 years ago. So if I were to bet right now, I'm with Bolt here, but does that make him the guy to beat? I wonder if there even is a guy to beat. Can you say that there is a guy to beat right now in the global sprint scene? I mean, you could say if Coleman runs early season or as early as he can once he comes back from the suspension and looks like Coleman of 2019, then you say, all right, in the 100, this is the guy to beat. But that still leaves the 200 wide open, and that assumes that Coleman's going to run something that fast. I think we are in an era right now where the phrase the guy to beat is going to be a week to week or a month to month thing. And it's not going to be a yearly thing or even a half a year thing like we had with Bolt. That's just not the 100 and the 200 right now across the world. It's just not.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. No disagreements here from Bolt. Did Bolt have a second quote? You made it seem like he had two quotes.
Yeah, the other one I wanted to talk about because they always get him on a bunch of different topics here, and it was about running in the U.S. because obviously Eugene is hosting World Championships, and he says, "quote The U.S. is one of those places where track and field is not that big," said Bolt. "So the fact that we have brought it to the U.S. now is very important for the athletes to perform and really get eyes on the sport." And he says he'd love to be part of it, no matter what is going on. I will be there. That's interesting because he never raced there. We never saw Bolt at Hayward Field throughout his career, which was really disappointing, really sad that we never got him at Pre Classic. I understand Nike Showcase. They're not putting the Puma athlete there, or they couldn't pay him enough to get him there. But it just seems like that should have happened throughout his career. You want to see Bolt at Hayward Field, but it's also interesting. He's correct here too. And when he says the U.S. is one of those places where track and field is not that big, that describes most of the world where it's not that big. His home country is the exception, but it's interesting. You have the biggest guy in the sport talking about where the meet is being hosted next year and saying it's not that big of a place and that people need to show up next year in order to get more eyes on the sport.
Yeah, I mean, where's the lie, right? He's not lying here. Um, and also, is he kind of taking a dig at US right here? Or is he just being honest?
I think he's being honest and he follows American sports. He follows football. I've seen him tweet about basketball and post about. I mean, he played in that All Star game before too. He's aware of the global sports landscape and he's aware of the American sports landscape. So he knows that. I mean, the one thing I would push back on is the idea that the athletes performing well will really get eyes on the sport. I don't know what it would take to really get more eyes on the sport or similar amount of eyes on the sport as the Olympics. I mean, last year we had Magic Johnson tweeting about it. We had, and he didn't know when the Olympic trials were. Um, he eventually found out, but I don't think he went, despite USATF and everybody trying to get him to go to the Olympic trials. Richardson obviously drew a ton of interest there. The one advantage to it being in the US from a marketability and viewership standpoint is just time zones. You get it in a time zone where people will come across it. You can't expect people who are not diehard track fans to wake up at 6 in the morning or stay up till midnight to watch. So that's the one advantage. More US media outlets will probably go and cover it because it's closer. So it'll show up more. It'll be in people's timelines or on people's feeds more. But I think the big thing is it just being on in a time when people can consume it.
Do you think like an outlet like ESPN will be there? I don't think so. You think ESPN will send a reporter
Sure, sure. Maybe not for the whole meet, but they'll be there the first couple
just for the
days.
100? Yeah.
Write the 100 story. Maybe they'll do a feature about the women's 400-meter hurdles. There's there's a fine out. There are a lot of sports going on at the same time, right? But there's also few opportunities to capture something like that, and I think that is worth a story or two. Are they going to be doing 3,000 words into the steeple? No. It's not going to be that
Yeah.
level of coverage, but they'll go there and they'll look for a star. It'll be a good opportunity. It'll be a cheap opportunity, relatively speaking, because usually, someone might go to Worlds. It'll be a cheap opportunity to get a head start on the Olympic coverage, right? Because they'll be able to get the background stuff, get a little bit of information, get the knowledge necessary. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of outlets going, but it would make sense to me. But the idea that someone could do something though that would be enough to shake up the sports scene in the US is a that's a tall ask, right? Is just like, run run 9.5 in the 100 or something. Cindy McLaughlin, if she breaks 51 in the 400-meter hurdles, then everybody's going to tune in. I don't know if there's a number or performance that's going to bring people around. I just think people will stumble across it on their dial and maybe they'll watch it or see it on their
Yeah,
timeline and then maybe they'll tune in.
I think the problem here is kind of when I connected to the cross country problem is that even when we had like the big Shikari moments, like her big build up to her race and pre and the reactions after, I think the problem is all of these moments are so short, right? It's just 10 seconds long or a minute long or 5 minutes long if it's a mile, whatever. But it's not just so short there, but it's so short in the year because we see an incredible football play week in and week out. Every
Yeah.
weekend, there's a new highlight of some crazy football move or a new basketball dunk or crazy game winning shot that we see every other day.
Yeah.
Track, if you're only going to see these great moments in July of 2022, and we're not
Yeah.
going to see them the next weekend and the weekend after for like a 3 month long process or 4 month or 5 month, whatever, it's going to be hard to get people hooked. It's hard to hook someone in on just one
One race. Yeah.
championship. You need to find a way to, because a lot of like even the NBA, like which I follow a lot, like what keeps me hooked is there's constantly something happening in that
Yeah.
sport, whether
Yeah.
it's free agency and trades during the off season, but every week there's like so much content around the
Mhm.
NBA of people playing basketball that it keeps me hooked for a long period of time going into the playoffs. Track, it's kind of hard to stay hooked because we're now going into like what, like
Mhm.
October, September, October, November. We're gonna go into like a 3.5, maybe 4 month long
Yeah.
time of like no track. And for like the stars, we're talking maybe even longer, like 6 months. Like
Yeah.
there are some stars who are gonna skip indoor who aren't gonna run
Mhm.
until like March. And their last
Mhm.
race was in September. And we're supposed to like that's a long time for us to like have no like content or beat around performances for some stars. But
Do you do you
you know,
think so? Last year, USATF put on a bunch of meets, and a lot of them got on TV, and I think that was just because the pandemic, right? We saw the ones at Mount Sac, we saw the ones at Hayward. Do you think they will do or should do a similar type of lead up to put stuff in front of people's eyes in April, May, and June to provide the type of season, even though we know it's not a real season and people can opt in and opt out, that would get people at least familiar with some of these names?
I mean, they could say they're going to do it, but I don't think they will.
Do you think they
I
should?
I don't. I think they should,
Mhm.
but like we see these like pop up meets come and go. We think it's like a new foundation, and they might do it for a year, two, maybe three if you're lucky, and then it
Yeah.
ends. And like we constantly think this is the new structure of our sport, but in the end, it always dies off, and it all just resorts back to running in college meets because that college meets will happen no matter what because you have a
Yeah.
university paying for it with their
But what I'm
football
saying is
money.
you only need it for 1 year. This only works, I'm saying, just as a hype machine for Eugene 2022. So you figure out 2023 and beyond later. I just think if you just focus on one event, you say the 100, men's and women's 100, just and that's part of the reason why this would never work is because it's difficult to just throw out a bunch of resources to one event at the expense of others. And you guaranteed Richardson's appearance at 3 or 4 meets, right, in the US, and those meets were all going to be on television. and you put together the best fields that you could around her. You try to get Shelly Ann or Elaine Thompson raw. And on the men's side, you lock in Curley, Bromell, Baker, that whole big group there, Bednarik, right? Coleman when he comes back, Lyles, and um, Degrasse, and you try to get them in 4 meets, try to get them in 3 meets, just so you have maybe one thing per month or one thing every a couple times before you get to the actual world championship. So people have just, hey, I saw those guys 2 times. And then, as a sweetener, you put DK Metcalf in lane 8 every time. You just throw him in there as bait, so that way people tune in.
Hey man, I love your optimism. I love your like thinking out of the
Well, how would you
box
do it?
and
How would you do it if you had just on a? I'm not talking about changing the whole sport. I'm not saying for your galaxy brain thing, but if you just on the short term, your job was to get as many people in the U.S. interested in watching the 2022 World Championships in Eugene, Oregon, and you have a budget, obviously not unlimited, but you have money to spend. How would you do it? How would you get people just on the short term try to get hooked in?
if I could just control the world.
Well, with limitations. I'm not saying you just like can do anything, but given the limitations that we have, but you also have a budget. What would you do? Some limitations
So
though.
I can't change the rules. Can I change the rules?
Well, let me hear that. Let me hear. I'll tell you if it's okay. Hit me with it.
Change the rules.
What are you?
Um, so when is Worlds? It's in July.
And at the end of July and August. Yeah.
It's in July. Okay. First things first is I wouldn't. I would separate.
It's August. Oh no, wait, hold on. Sorry,
No,
July
it's in July.
July 15th to July 24th. Sorry.
I would. I'm not gonna go too crazy. I could come up with crazy things where I think you would separate the events into different
No, no, no. Don't do that. Don't do that. You
pockets.
still need to do the
But
track meet. You still need to do the track meet the way it
okay,
is.
still need to
You
do a
can't
regular
change
track
the
meet.
meet.
All right. So what I would
Yeah.
do is a week out, a weekend. I would have a 4-day weekend. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the weekend before the meet starts. I
Hmm.
would every weekend for let's say 10 weeks. I would host a track meet in Eugene.
Hmm.
And I would make sure that it had like 50% of the field every time, a combination of
Okay.
50% of the field every time. And I'd host a,
All right.
a 4-day track meet every weekend for like 10 weeks leading up to the World Championships.
So not okay. That's even more intense than my idea. I
You need,
was just
I mean, you see
saying, hey, let's
82
try to get.
basketball games. We watch 17 football games. Like, people can run. We just choose not to because we think it's like breaking the sanctity of the pure body experience being at the ultimate peak in July. It's bullshit. Come on.
No, I like it. I like it. I like the plan. Just make them compete. You put them on TV enough, people will start to recognize them and
Yeah.
start to feel some sort of connection to them, or start to find a favorite out there. Because it's I don't think it's enough to just hey they got the USA jersey on, we're gonna watch them, and then we're gonna be interested. That's not enough of a hook, especially when we're just coming off the Olympics, where that's just the highest level of it for people. People don't see the World Championships as the same as the Olympics. So the asking them to accept the World Championships and just tune in just because US is competing is not going to be enough. So interesting ideas there. We'll keep kicking some
And
around.
every time I always like confuse myself, like why don't people care about non-Olympic running? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there's so much awesome things going on in our sport. And I think about I have no idea what Michael Phelps did outside of the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I think that shows. Like when I look at my own personal bias of other people's sports, I
Yeah.
recognize I have no idea when he breaks records, when he broke records or do crazy streaks or anything like that. All I know is what he did in 2004, 8, 12, and 16. And
Yeah.
I think same thing with like Simone Biles, right? I only know what
Mhm.
she did in 16, 12, and I'm not even sure if she was there in 8, but you know what I mean. I think if you look at our own biases to other people's sports, how we only care
Yeah,
about them during the Olympics, why wouldn't they only care about us during the Olympics? Just it goes both ways. So
100%. 100%. And I think a lot of the sports have the same issue where everything just revolves around that one championship. And I like to think track is different because it just the numbers of participants is so much bigger and the global representation is larger than those sports that there's more potential there. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't know what Ryan Lochte was doing. I didn't know. I
yeah,
don't know what Katie Ledecky does. I don't know any of that. But you tune in for those couple weeks and then you watch them and then you forget about it. Forget about that sport for a really long time. And that's the popular ones. Those are the popular Olympic sports too. That says nothing of the other tier sports, the lower tier ones that the people, like wrestling, like
yeah.
stuff like that. Like there are people following that on a week to week basis. What are you smiling for?
Well, you just like where'd you get wrestling? I mean,
I was gonna say beach volleyball. I was gonna say beach volleyball,
okay,
but then I
all right.
realized that's on TV a lot. Um, but again, like when was it Misty May and Carrie Walsh when they were was it the other way around? No, it was Misty May and Carrie Walsh. I was and then Dalhouser. Like I know the names, but I don't ever remember watching them outside the Olympics.
Have you seen this new sport that is out there right now? Maybe this could be an event in track and field. It's
I can't tell if you're
balloon.
lying.
It's like it's a balloon competition. Travis, Google balloon Olympic sport in Twitter if he's still here. If Travis is still here.
I mean, Travis left a
Well,
long time ago.
when you're a kid, you would have to like keep the balloon from touching the ground in like a living room. They've had this
Oh
now
yeah, yeah,
official
yeah, yeah,
competition where they set up a living room. They put different objects in it, like even a car, wearing
yeah,
helmets, and you're supposed to see if you can keep the balloon up in the air. I'm guessing there's a rule you can't hit the balloon down because if you hit the balloon down, that would probably be cheating. But
yeah.
yeah, check this out. We need this
This
is
is awesome.
Olympic sports
They
right
got
here.
graphics. Peru versus
Yeah,
Germany.
graphics.
I mean, I always thought I was the only one who played this. This is
I
crazy to
know.
know that not only did everybody play it, but everybody played it at a level to where they're going to do it with helmets. And why is there a car in their living room?
I think it's
I
a
guess it's
sponsorship probably. I think
oh
Volkswagen
okay.
probably sponsored. Yeah.
Because I thought you were going to say it's a garage, Kevin, and then I'd say why is that nice of a couch in a garage? It doesn't make sense either way. Awesome, balloon Olympics coming to a
Balloon
games near
Olympics.
you. Wayne Kaladi. I want to talk about Wayne Kaladi real quick, and then we will do these cross country emails. 31-18 in Boston in the 10K. Beats Molly Huddle's course record by 3 seconds. Gordon, convincing win for Wayne Kaladi. I've always said she's going to be solid on the roads. Initially, this was reported as a women's only American record in the 10K, but some intrepid reporting I saw on Twitter from David Monty reveals that Shalane Flanagan actually ran faster in 2015. But either way, Kaladi, awesome. I think she's going to be great on the roads. I've always thought she's going to be great on the roads, maybe even longer distances as her career progresses. She's still pretty good on the track in the 5 and 10, but I think I'm feeling better and better about my Kaladi future marathon projection that I made back when she dropped me when I was riding a bike to film a workout with her in Albuquerque.
Yeah. I mean, people there's some of these like really amazing dominant NCAA distance stars like Kaladi and Cheserek. We're just looking forward to seeing those types of athletes in a marathon, right? Talk about sometimes people don't make their marathon debut till super late in their career.
Mhm.
Cheserek now has been kind of in his post collegiate career for a while now, and he ran that. I think he ran a half marathon. So seeing Kaladi run this road 10K, it just gets me thinking. I want to see these NCAA cross country goats or stars. Like you say, goat was Cheserek was a goat. Kaladi was probably just a star, but
Mhm.
see them run a marathon.
Yeah.
Every time they
Look,
run on road, I'm like, ooh, go a little farther. Just do 26.
yeah. Well, because on the road you want to see one distance. 5Ks are fine,
Yeah.
10Ks are fine, half marathons are fine, but everybody if you're on the road, you want to see them in a marathon. Because if you're going to run 10K, you just do that on the track. But marathon is where it's at. I just think her ability to go hard even when she's by herself. I think it's just something that's going to suit her really well in the marathon. We saw that in cross. She basically just forged her own path in a lot of those races, and she can grind it out. She can definitely click off those miles, and it's help great. If she doesn't, she's willing to do herself. So I think she's going to be a good prospect in the longer distances.
Okay, Kevin. Question.
Yeah, yeah.
You may need to refresh your browser first. Do a quick refresh,
Again?
and I'm gonna hit you with an ultimate question because you're breaking up a bit. While you refresh, you ready? You're muted or your audio's not working. Okay, he's coming in and out. Kevin, make sure you refresh, and then I'm gonna hit you with the question. You good? Talk.
Hello. My
Okay, so
internet
here's
is
the
not
question.
good.
I'm gonna make you an offer,
Yes.
and tell me if you're willing to take it. You give me $1,000 today, okay? And if Wendy Colati is on the 2024 Olympic marathon team in the US, I will give you $10,000. Would you do that deal?
In a vacuum or with my current financial situation?
Both. Current financial
Okay.
situation.
Well, you've seen how good my internet is on this episode, so that gives you a glimpse into my current financial situation. Can we reduce that by I give you $100, and then if she gets on the team, I get 1,000? That's more my speed.
That's no more. That's not as fun though. I want to because winning at $10,000 is pretty damn cool, right?
Oh,
You know.
but I know you're not good for it either. I'm not good for it now, and you're not good for it later. So that bet would not work. Am I that confident? Yes. In the
Okay.
abstract. Am I willing to actually do it? No. But I am all aboard Kaladi Marathon 2024. But I would
Yeah.
also be bummed
I
out if
mean,
she just doesn't do it. That would be the most disappointing result if she doesn't even run the race. If she goes and she makes the 10K team, which she'd be capable of too. Because I thought she had a chance at the 10K team this year.
yeah. I just
Kind
feel
of
like
take my
there's
money.
always these potential all-time greats in a marathon that we just never get to see. And I feel
I
like
know. That's why I want
Kaladi
to see
might
it
be one of
now.
them.
I
Yeah.
want to see it now, right?
Want to see
Okay.
it now.
I'm gonna read the emails. Maybe you should read the emails because my audio is probably gonna die again. But I will read them. But what I need you to do is about every 15 seconds, just so I know I'm still connected, go like, like you're listening. Can you do that?
Okay. Uh-huh.
There you go. All right. Kurt. Okay, Gordon, I'm a bit late on this. I had some things that pushed back when I watched the XC show, and there doesn't seem to be any other way to send comments, so I will try here. Yes, this is the email address, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. He said he likes a lot of what you did. He says, I get your field size, but I think I would expand them a bit more if the super regional makes sense. And then I say the fields of 20, then limit to 16 teams for nationals. You got that?
So yeah,
You're
I
not
go
doing the
from
thing.
15. I do 15 super regional, 10 at national. He wants to do 20 at super regionals, 16 at nationals.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm not married to like 6 teams, so I'm okay with
His
that.
second point, I think he wants the men and women to run 8K across the board, which that really wasn't your point, the distance, but okay. Three, I think one really awesome thing about cross country is the tradition and history. The schedule as it laid out removes the invitational aspect, which I think is really great. He talks about the Paul Short meet, it was excellent. And then he wants to find a way to maintain Paul Short, Nutty Comb, Chili Pepper, Cowboy Jamboree, Battle in Beantown, etc. I do feel that not having those races would diminish things. Plus, it's always cool to have some meets where teams like Adams State and Grand Valley State or Colorado Mines can compete with the big boys.
So in this situation, similar to in college football, when everyone was like, if we have a college football playoff, what happens to the bowl games? Well, what happened to the bowl games was the bowl games became the playoff games, right? The Rose Bowl became a semifinal. The Sugar Bowl became a semifinal, and they rotated it. This
I
situation
see.
with my pre nationals and pre conferences and pre regionals, those can all be kind of rebranded as whatever these invitationals are. So, like pre, Roy Griak could be the pre conference or the pre regional in Minnesota, right? It just happens that
Yeah.
bring in mainly the teams that are from regionals, and then you can also throw in a couple D2 teams if they want to compete, like you said, with the
Yeah.
big boys. So I don't think the invitationals go anywhere. I just think it's about what fields are in the invitationals and when they're being held. So Nutty
Okay.
Cone will still be a meet, but it could be held during pre-national weekend.
It's a literal invitational. You need to be invited to go there
Yeah.
because the fields will be selected not by you, right? It's determined by regional or conference or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
under Gordon's schedule, if I'm correct, you don't really get to pick any of your meets, correct? They're all pre-scheduled.
Correct. The pre and like we also do things like say we do a thing where we have like a Big 12, Pac 12 pre conference combination. So in this meet, we're going to
Yeah.
combine both all the Big 12 and Pac 12 teams, and they're running together as their pre conference meet together. And we have, interesting dynamic, right? So you can find
Mhm.
ways to mix and match. It's just that everyone makes sure they race all their conference opponents once, all their regional opponents once, and all of the top tier teams once.
Mhm.
So you just get a little bit of connection to
Yeah.
all the teams.
His fourth point, indoor season. The longer season does hurt indoor for the distance folks. Personally, I'm not a huge indoor fan, so I'm okay with it. But I think that will be the biggest factor that would prevent coaches' support. Arkansas uses cross country to set up indoor and indoor to set up outdoor, so that makes it tough. And his last point, I think pushing it out as far as you have it to New Year's Day, which I love, by the way, limits the chances of eyes on the content. To maximize, I think you need to have the championship, say, the weekend of the 11th, which fits right in between NCAA football conferences and the bowl season. It's an open weekend with only some FCS games, women's volleyball regionals, and men's soccer semis and finals. And then he sums it up here at the bottom. Um, keep conference meets on October 30th, regionals 11/13, super regionals 11/27, and then championships on December 11th. And he says teams must compete
Yeah.
in 7 meets to be eligible, with 50% of their squad competing. He says 5K, 6K early in the season with 10K, or sorry, with 8K from conference on. I'm also like, I'm totally fine with the 8K thing. If they want to make a uniform 8K decision,
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, the dates I'm not married to. I was just kind of projecting out like a rough draft, but like, the idea of having conferences Halloween weekend, regionals when they normally are, super regionals Thanksgiving weekend, and championships basically the weekend that Foot Locker happens or NXN happens
Yeah.
in December. That'll be great. So
So Jeff writes in similar point here. He says, can't tell you how happy I am that you two are back covering a regular season of cross country. Feels great. There you go. Uh, he says he 100% agree that having some required qualification meets would help bring a different perspective to sport for the coaches and athletes. And then he talks about the regionals, sorry, the invitational point as well too. He brings up Chili Pepper, Oklahoma State, Wisconsin, Griak. He says with the addition of 6 meets, pre-conference, pre-region, pre-nationals, conference, regional, and super regional. I like how people are using your vocabulary now too. This is scary. It's a scary amount of power. Like you're gonna show up to Tallahassee and someone's gonna show up. Like, can I just shake your hand, man? I just really like that pre-conference idea. Uh, he says, would meets mentioned be at risk of being canceled due to schools having maybe 1 to 2 other meets on the schedule that are not required? A lot of times these meets are held as a way to fundraise for the program since we know cross country is not a well funded sport. It would be a shame for these big meets to be canceled due to less schools attending due to new requirements. But maybe, as you said earlier, with some meets being 5Ks, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. He said, just want to bring that up and get your opinion. Keep up the great work. That is Jeff.
yeah, I mean, I understand like Chili Pepper. It's like some of these meats, they're definitely like long stays and like they bring in like the NAIA schools with the
Yeah.
JUCOs, and it's just a big and there's a high school version of the race, and you want to find a way to kind of preserve those types of meets. I do think there are probably a select few that actually truly have like a long standing in the sport, like the Chili
Hmm.
Peppers, the Griaks, the Jamborees. But then there's also some meets that come and go, right? Like I
Hmm.
know like UW, Washington had like the Washington Invitational for like 3 years in
Hmm.
Seattle. And there's some other meets that are just like here and there. I think
Hmm.
a lot of these meets can be transferred into that early season rust buster type meet. And also some, like I said, other meets can kind of be repackaged into the pre-conference, weekend or repackaged into the pre-regional weekend. I mean, most of them are kind of like a regional anyway, because if they're hosting
Yeah.
it, a lot of teams from that region are probably going there. So I'm sure a lot
Would
of
you be in
South Central teams go to Chili Pepper, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So would you be in favor of just saying, you know what? Chili Pepper is the permanent pre-regional site. It just is. And you're in charge and you make that distinction. Is that something that you'd do?
Yeah, we could do that. But you also could do like Chili Pepper still happens, but they only get the D1 teams every 2 years because because a lot of
Yeah.
these meets have a lot of non D1 competition and they have like a D1
Right.
invitational race. So their mate can still happen, but every other year it has like, we are the official like pre
Hmm.
conference meet of the year. And every even year
Yeah.
we get all the conference teams from Big 12 to come. You
Yeah.
kind of, I think there's flexibility. The overall goal is
Yeah.
you guarantee, like, I know Penn State is going to play everyone in the Big Ten once in a football game. I want to know that Penn State cross country is going to race everyone in the Big Ten twice, everyone in the regional twice, and everyone in the top 25 twice.
Do they
Is
play
what I want.
everyone once? I don't think they play everyone once. I think there's too many teams in the conference
No,
now.
for some, no,
But
but they play everyone in their division at least once.
I get your point. Yeah. I think something is going to need to be sacrificed and you got to figure out what it is. And if it's, hey, we don't get to see Grand Valley State run against these D1 teams, you got to weigh that against having a compelling regular season. Because the moment you start making exceptions and changing things, it just backslides into what we have now, which is just the free for all. And I like somebody. I've been to a lot of these meets as well too. I know that they have history attached to them, but yeah, I think there's a way to incorporate and really raise the stakes on the meet, which I think would be fun too. Imagine if you're a high school
Yeah.
kid and you're going to one of these meets and then you get a front row seat at Gordon Mack's pre-regional. That could change the way you view the sport forever, potentially. No, but there would actually be a chance that you'd see the all-stars really going for it, right? Like, which I know most people, high school kids, they see fast college runners and it doesn't matter to them because they all look fast. But to the people who are well acquainted, you're seeing a quality meet at that point. Like that's a showcase meet that you're seeing. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and you can have people bid for it too. Like
Yeah.
the South Central regional coaches can like say for the next 3 years, Chili Pepper is going to be our official pre-regional
Yeah.
course, and you could have the Pac-12 people decide, hey, Stanford, your Stanford Invitational is now going to be the host for all of our pre-conference meets for the next two
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill Dillinger, you're now the pre-regional, you're the pre-conference course
Mhm.
for 2025.
But pre-conference would change based on where conference was held, and well, not most, but a lot of conferences rotate where that meet is held
Yeah.
too. So that would rotate, which is fine. Again, track and field knocked down a 99-year-old stadium that held so much tradition and history. I think we'll get by without these meets being perfect, right? Perfect every single year. Like if there's a limit on who can go, or you're right, it's every other year the D1 teams aren't there. I think we'll be all right.
I feel like you add the number of years of the how old Hayward Field is every time you want to bring it up, as they're willing to tear down a 2,000-year-old before Jesus was born
No, I think it's
stadium.
99. Wasn't it 99?
I
I
don't know.
would I thought it was I think it's 99 because I was like, man, they could have like waited a year and done 100. No, that's how bad they wanted to knock that thing down. No, I think more sports should knock down the cathedrals. I think it'd be way better off. That's why Wrigley
Hey, Yankee
Field.
Stadium did it.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think there's probably a lot of people
Cameron.
like you who were upset
Yeah,
when Yankee Stadium got torn down?
yeah. We're in a text chain together. We get really mad. It's me and a bunch of really really old dudes. It's just great. Okay, we did a great job, Gordon. We touched on a lot of topics: marathon, cross country, Kipchoge, chasing people down in a 5K, Usain Bolt's views on the world, Wayne Kaladi's future on the roads, my internet barely held up, Some say it didn't hold up because I went out a couple times, but I made it to the finish line. That's all that counts. Thanks to Travis for producing. Thanks to Colt, as always, the greatest podcast producer ever to hail from Kansas. I just want to say that. He stopped the music. Right as I say that, he stopped the music. Why, Colt? Come on, man. I was gonna say Manhattan. Okay, good. There it is. There it is. All right, I couldn't hear it. There was not enough in my headphones. Anyway, we're back Wednesday. Gordon will have an interview. We'll talk some more stuff about track and field. I'll have better internet, I promise. Bye.
Let's go, Emmanuel Sanders. Fantasy.